right, welcome to another episode of The Influential Nonprofit. I am very excited because my friend is here today, LeeAnn Marie Webster, and LeeAnn gets the award for the best presented intro to me ever, and I'm going to read it because it's perfect. Can you imagine harnessing the power of email to easily generate leads to your business? To have your emails be the ones that are welcomed and read, to be the star of your subscribers' inboxes. Yes, I want all those things. I know. So you're in luck because today's speaker, or today's guest, LeeAnn Marie Webster, is an email marketing expert who is on a mission to get you to love email marketing. And LeeAnn created Email with Heart and to give entrepreneurs a structure for utilizing email to more effectively grow their business without being sleazy or cheesy. And you're a recovering attorney, a triathlete, a Moth Story Hour winner, right? Like what? And we can talk about that in a minute. I have a feeling that's going to be the answer to the first question I asked. And also LeeAnn helps, her team produces my donor attraction forum, and she's an email marketing expert. I have a puppy at my feet. So that was okay. And she was at the donor attraction forum, and it was such a, people were so hungry for information that I wanted to have you on the podcast for real to talk about some email marketing, because I think it's the most underutilized, misused thing nonprofits do, and the easiest one to fix. Amen. So welcome, LeeAnn.
Yay. Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
I am too. Let me close my office door here. There you go. I want to say, because LeeAnn and I are friends, we're part of the same coaching group, and she is my email inspiration. So if people are on my email list and they love my emails, you're the reason why, because whatever she teaches me, I like to share with, my nonprofit community so we can harness the power of this. Now, before I get started, my opening question, which is, tell me something you're proud of that you don't get to brag about. But I feel like I know what it's going to be. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, it's my Moth Story Slam win, which just recently happened. It was amazing and exciting. And you have those times in your life, sometimes in your business, hopefully in your business, where you just you do something and you're like, oh my God, that was scary and fun and awesome. And I wish I could just do that all the time. That was it. Like being up there, telling the story. The theme was Love Hurts. And so I told the story of how I got stood up on my senior prom. And yeah.
Okay. And so to explain what the Moth Story Slam is.
It is, so the Moth is devoted to helping develop storytellers, and they do, they have a show on NPR, they have a podcast. They're actually also an organization that teaches high school students, and I think maybe even a little bit younger, storytelling skills. And so it's kind of the art of telling stories. And so you can listen to them through their podcast or through the NPR show. And then they also do these live events in various cities around, at least around the US. I have to check if it's international. But if you live in a big city, there's probably a story slam in your city. And the way it works is actually pretty cool. They have a theme. You buy a ticket. You don't know if you're going to get to speak or not. And when you show up, you say you want to speak, and then they literally throw your hat in a ring and they pull out 10 storytellers. And after each person, they get judged, and then the person with the highest score wins.
So what's next? What's next?
They invite all the winners to a Grand Slam event, and that's only for winners. And then I'll know that I'm going to speak. And they only do that a couple times a year. And so hopefully.
And then when you win that, then what happens?
There's not a grander slam, which I was I'm
get to be on the podcast.
I know. Well, I might be now. So everything, the podcast material is sourced from, in part from these live events. So the story that I told may appear on the podcast, and they said they'll let me know if that happens, if I'm going to be either on the show or on the podcast. So
that's exciting. Congratulations. All right. So, and we're going to talk today about email marketing. So you have Email with Heart. And that is sort of your program, your process. So why don't we walk through what email with heart is?
Okay. Before heart is an acronym, and it's my way that I view the email world. And before I even tell you what the H is, I wanted to say the reason I created email with heart was because I wanted to change the conversation around email. I think email gets a bad rap sometimes. And people either don't use it because they don't think it'll be profitable or drive results. And also because they don't want to be like that person. I mean, the truth is our email boxes are all full, and there's a lot of people vying for attention in there. And we've all been the victims of spam. We've all had someone take our email address and sell it to somebody, and all of this terrible stuff happens. And even with all of that, it's still the most reliable delivery method, and it's the one that drives the highest ROI. Like the ROI on email is like 4,400% or some outrageous stat like that, versus, we've all, I mean, I don't know about you, done the Facebook ads or the LinkedIn ads or something, and you're trying to track, did that work, or did it generate? And usually it doesn't, or it doesn't in the same way. I'll say that.
So I just had Elia on this show, and we set you up so beautifully for this episode because his company, it's called Connect Ad, and they help nonprofits get and create Google ads. So it's a $10,000 grant a month. But the whole thing that we were talking about was using the Google ads to drive people to build your email list.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And so he gave an example of like this organization, the Redwoods, and they use their Google ads for an advocacy, like to sign this petition. Then people come in, they sign the petition, and then they get the email, right? And now they're in contact with them. But the Google ads, so it can be like a really top funnel thing to drive people. But we are both talking and really emphasizing the need for the email to capture. It's the one way you capture all this energy, your social media, your Google ads, and like bring people into your orbit, right? And keep them there and love on them, in a reliable way, because God knows these algorithms. I mean, Facebook, I think, is dying. I just don't know how people just can't. I mean, I don't get responses on there, LinkedIn's for a really specific audience. I mean, so the whole goal is for me, and what I recommend to people is all roads lead to the email, right?
Yes.
Like all the marketing leads to your email. And that and we can talk more about after you explain what email with heart is and all that. We get into it, like of how we can utilize email more effectively. Because it's something everyone's using and everyone could use better. Like I don't use the words like everyone, like I feel like most people could do this and they could do it better.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's start with hearts. The H in heart is for how. How do people get on your email list? So that's what you're talking about, that great ad Google ads that, if you're driving traffic from Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever social platform you might be using, driving them to a mechanism to get on your list.
Yeah. And we'll talk more about what that is later.
And then do you want me to do quick, or do you want me to do like a little bit in each one?
Let's just do a quick overview and then we'll dive in.
Got it. Okay. So the E in heart is for engaging content. So what are you going to say? Get them on the list. What are you going to say? And I have some great ideas for how to come up with your content, which we can discuss. The A in heart is for authentic voice. This is making sure that the voice of the message of the emails match the voice and the tone of the organization. You don't want, yo, it's from whatever, if it's like this, very
institute of right. Yeah.
Right. Conversely, we don't want it to be this straight-laced, very monotone kind of thing for an organization that's like for kids,
right?
And
I was just thinking Girls on the Run, like, okay, that is,
right. So making sure there's a match there. The R in heart is for rhythm. So this looks at how often to email your list, and making sure that you're sticking with a particular rhythm. and making sure you're being consistent. Consistency is key for that one. And then the T in heart is for technology, and that's understanding some certain key metrics. Subscriber, how many open rate, click-through rate, unsubscribe, and then also just picking the right platform for what you need.
Okay. All right. So let's start let's talk about how people get on your email list. So what is the right way and what is the wrong / illegal way? Because I don't really think in polarities, right? That's one of the things we work on.
Yeah.
There's some polarity here. Okay. First of all, I keep looking down for those of you watching this. I keep looking down. If you're listening, and because I have my foster puppy Tina at my feet. Aww. And she's about 9 weeks old. She's so grown up. She's such a good girl. I foster for Stray Rescue of St. Louis. So if anybody's looking, and she's planted herself in front of this little space heater I keep here to keep my feet warm in this little cold corner of my house. And I'm just trying to you were gonna melt yourself, honey. But she will not move in front of it. She's like, nope, found my spot. Maybe I need to get her a little sweater or something.
Maybe.
She's got really short hair. All right. So Tina. Okay. So, all right. So how do people get on a list? What is the right way to do this?
Well, I always like to start with the wrong way, because most people will resonate with this, right? If we've been to a networking event, for example, and you trade your business card and then somebody takes it off the card and adds you to their list, that's not permissive. Another way that's really popular is LinkedIn. People going to your LinkedIn profile and scraping your email address from their first degree contacts. There used to be a way to download. Apparently LinkedIn turned off that way to download, but I still find people finding a backdoor way in there somehow. So there's people doing that. And then the other way that I've seen lately that I think is even more egregious is when you're just in a one-on-one conversation, you and I, Marianne, I might send you a message here's the update on that project or whatever. And there are people who will, in those conversations, take the email and add people to their email list. So all wrong.
All right. So I think if I would go to a networking thing and somebody gives me their card, is that just, I think people think that is an almost unspoken permission to go on the list. You're like, oof, no, not really. They just gave you your card. They didn't give you permission to go on the list.
Exactly. Here's the thing. I like to think of this, I have a legal background. In the Fourth Amendment, there are a little legal lesson, the search and seizure law. They talk about the expectation of privacy. Expectation, I'm here in my house. I don't expect that some stranger is just going to open the door and walk on through. It's my private home. I expect it to be private. Is there an expectation of email? If I give you my business card, I'm doing it so we can stay in touch. But do I expect that you're going to take and put me on your email list? No, I don't expect that. And not only do I not expect it, if you do it, it's actually illegal. It's a violation of the Can-Spam Act. And so now the problem is, nobody's enforcing the Can-Spam Act. So it's not like the cops are going to come, right, knock on your door. But the problem is, if you, for the people who are doing that, if the receivers are marking you as spam and you get too many spam reports, your email platform can actually shut you down.
Right.
And it can start to affect your deliverability rate, because if the powers that be that are watching what's happening with your email, if they're seeing you get a lot of these spam complaints, then they'll stop putting your email into the inbox and actually starts where it starts in the spam box instead of in the inbox. And you don't want that either, because then people won't be able to read your message.
Right. Okay. So I don't know, you may remember this story. One of the first 3-day marketing planning thing I did, my first kind of, retreat. And one of my participants had built his whole email list. They said, grow the list. He grew the list. And then he did it. And this was completely they said, grow the list. And he took it. So if you give an out of office responder and it says, contact this person, he would take that name and put it on the list. I know. And I was like, they had pretty good open rates. I was shocked, but it was but people just don't know. They grow the list, you grow the list, you're getting names on the list. And so and although we all like to have a big fat list, there's also quality over quantity, right?
Absolutely.
And the quality of the people who want to be with you, want to engage with you. If you have, 16,000 people, because you scrub all these names and like no one opens or cares, I'd rather have 600 people who all love me, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is the thing. It's, vanity, it can be an ego vanity thing to have like the big list. I've got 16,000 on my list. But if people aren't engaging, if they don't want to be on there, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like what you want are people who love you, who are reading and participating, who are sharing it with others, who are your fans, who want to volunteer for your organization, who want to donate to your organization. That's a very special relationship that you're building with the people on your list. So honor it, because if you can honor it and develop it, then a 500 person list will give you more than a 16,000 list.
Right. And if you're giving people like really good content, which is kind of like going into E, if we want to go into engaging content, are you ready for engaging content? Okay.
Yes. So engaging content. First of all, one thing that I really want you to think about is just sitting in the shoes of your subscribers and your audience, really honing in on who's on the other side and thinking about what is it that they need? What do they need to know? Well, how can I as a content writer for this organization provide them with information that will help them in their journey or help them interact with us or help them in some way other than the joy of the opportunity to donate?
Right. And I do feel like nonprofits kind of struggle with this. Like, what value can we have? Like, what, I don't know. Like, and there's a lot of stuff going on underneath this belief. Like what can we say that's a value? I don't know. And there's so much that they can share, like so many interesting stories. And one of the things that came through from the donor attraction forum was, well, the story that's not told often enough is the donor story, like having donors tell their own stories. Like, here's why I participate. Here's why it's important to me. Here's how I feel when I do it. Like all of that, like there's so many stories to tell that are really engaging, once you open your mind to the possibility of it.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Why are the people who are the most engaged in the organization, why are they doing what they're doing? And then, and then you can also look at the practical side. I mean, you just mentioned the organization that you foster puppies through.
Right.
And so you could, knowing that there's a constituency out there that, perfectly timed.
That's Miss Tina. Okay.
On cue. But, tips for raising a puppy, how to keep the puppy, what should you be feeding them? How do you, what are some little training things you can do for them in the short time that you have them before they get adopted? There's but also it'd be to profile you, because you've adopted or fostered how many puppies?
We've been fostering since literally 1997. I remember the founder of this organization standing in my front yard at the house I owned before this one going, what do you think? Like Stray Rescue of St. Louis. Does that sound good? I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Like that's how OG I was to Stray Rescue. And so since 1997, off and on, we've taken some breaks, like when we moved, my dad passed away, that kind of stuff, but probably more than 250 puppies over like 25 something years,
Yeah. Wow. So, okay. If you are that organization, don't you think it could be cool to profile LeeAnn? And look, there's all kinds of stories we can get out of that. Why are you doing it? How did the organization start? There's an origin story there. Tips that you probably have
how do you foster puppies? And the biggest thing is how you let them go.
Because
most people don't foster because they're afraid they're going to get attached. And I'm going to tell you, these puppies ain't easy. So we're like, is it hard to let them go? I'm like, oh no. You're like, hey, time to go. I'm like, oh good Lord, she ate this, time to go, honey. Because there comes a point where they just need more training and attention than we can give them. I mean, they really need investment for the long term.
Yeah.
And so there are so many like stories just in there that either share people are going to connect with because they share the love of the animals or the passion for the organization, or just really practical advice. Like I work with the Foster Adopted Care Coalition. They are experts in, trauma. And, so, if your kid's experiencing trauma, if your kid has, behavior issues, like they could share like here, because if they can, they have experts in education, all these different things that you could share with people.
Yeah.
So I think that goes beyond like the internal story to more just like every nonprofit is an expert in something, aging, health, diabetes, that you can share, like, here's something practical of the wisdom that we have. I'm just thinking of like, like one of my clients, Childcare Aware of Missouri, like, here's how you pick it. Here's how you pick a childcare center for your family. They did a whole series of videos on that. There's so much expertise that you have to share, and so many stories. Like, I never sit down in front of the computer and think, what am I going to write about now? That just comes really easy to me. And I know for others, that doesn't come easy. They just don't know where to go with this. Or there's people around them kind of being like, isn't that a little too personal? Or we don't want to look like this, or like, you could tell a story of something that didn't work out right, or a disappointment or something, like being super vulnerable. Cause when we get to authentic voice, we can talk about that more, like being really open and transparent with people. This is the way you do it.
Exactly. And it's the connecting, because there's a person on the other side of that @ symbol, right? Yes, you're an organization and you're representing an organization, and you might even be writing to organizations, and there's a person in that organization that you're connecting with. So just always make that connection to the person. And for content, I do recommend I use Evernote personally. Some people use Word. You could use, a notebook or whatever. But I like to have a place that captures content ideas I have. So with this conversation that we're having right now, you are probably thinking like, oh, maybe this, maybe this, maybe this. Jot those things down somewhere so that you have a list. So when you go to write your email, there's ideas already there for you to pick from.
Yeah.
So then you might get divine inspiration. I mean, I had, I write mine on Monday and they go out on Thursday. So it's like I write it on Monday, on Wednesday, I review it again, I set it to go on Thursday. I wrote one on Monday. And then this morning on my walk, I got this divine inspiration of this, something else I wanted to do. And it's kind of based on a conversation I had yesterday. And so I sat down this morning and I was like, great. The one I wrote Monday, I'm not going to send out this week. I got it in the queue. It might go next week or in a couple weeks or whatever.
Right.
But this other one came right through, and then it's like, ship it up and send. So
that's
never
like,
at a loss.
That's why I think like, well, I like that idea, because you can schedule out, then you can always change it, right? Like you can always adjust in the moment if you need to.
Totally.
Because sometimes, that inspiration does hit, and or something timely happens and you're like, oh, we're going to pause that more evergreen topic for this topic.
Yes. And you want space to adjust, because the world is a little crazy. And
you think? I don't know what's going on. Like, everything is cool.
What's not going on?
I know. So, well, and the thing is, like, if I were managing my nonprofit's email, I would have event stories, I would have client stories, I would have staff stories, donor stories, volunteer stories, and just create like a category and just like would pop them in. So you have like a bank. And then you can say, oh yeah, I remember she told me that. That was just such a beautiful little story. I'm going to call her or rewrite that story. You don't have to write them all, right? Just jot down the idea. So you have this idea bank. And so when you go to like, oh, our event's coming up. Okay. Yeah. I remember these stories. And well, also what that means is being very open, because a lot of times, like, I think people want stories to come to them. Like, I want people like, no, it's like a reporter. You go get them. You have to listen. You have to be constantly listening for, that'd make a good story.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I love it.
All
Perfect.
right. Okay.
Okay.
Let's talk about authentic voice because we sort of touched on it. But that
Mhm.
is so, so, so important. There is a person on the other side of that act.
Yes, absolutely. And what they're looking for is connection. We are all looking for connection. And so the authentic voice piece is to make sure that you're being congruent with the message and with the tone and the structure and the approach of the organization and then of the email to make sure that they are congruent. Because otherwise, if you're getting something that the example we used earlier, right? If it's a very like um let's say it was like, let's say it's the dog organization, right? The one that you work
Stray
with, right?
rescue.
That
Uh-huh.
and so if that feels a little more homey, dogs are usually in your home, it's got a little, might have a little bit more of a family voice to it, and kind of a warm sort of tone. And if all of a sudden they sent these very like corporate-y, statistical, straight-laced, very like that kind of tone, it would be weird and it would feel off. And what you don't want is for the reader to be like, huh, they might not be able to articulate it, but they might be like, yeah, no, something just doesn't feel right.
Yeah. I'm not jamming with this.
Yeah, yeah. Because then they'll be like, okay, and they might not read next time, or they might not take the action that you want them to take because they're not feeling that connection.
Right. Okay. So, and when I write to a person, and this
Mhm.
is something I really recommend. I think of somebody on my list, that, and I like, there's a few people that I always think, cause like, they participate in my program, like, or, I just have a strong affinity for them.
Mm.
And not that I don't love all of you,
Not
but
everyone.
like I like think of somebody and I like write to that person and I put
Yes,
them in my mind as
yes,
if, and I write to them as if I was talking with them or we were like in a conversation instead of, and I think that's so important because sometimes when we start to fine tune the writing to where then it becomes a little formal, right?
yes,
Like, mm-hmm.
yes. Because we feel, sometimes like especially I think on when we're representing organizations, right? We take on sometimes a little bit more of a formal voice, and
Yes.
it starts to feel a little bit stiff.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead, you want to remember you're a person, they're a
Yes.
person.
Yes.
And this is why I also say be really careful with templates. Or, sometimes people will look up a template so that they're not starting with what I call the white screen of death, and it's
Uh-huh.
like you're just sitting there like, what am I going to say? And fill the whole
Right.
thing in. So it's like you'll get a template. The challenge with templates is you really need to just rewrite them, recraft them so that they match the voice of the organization, because otherwise there'll be, again, a disconnect. And you don't want the receiver to be like, huh, that something just doesn't seem right about this.
Yeah. I would invite the listeners to consider talking into like a voice recorder and just like you're going to share a story and all
Yeah.
of the ahs and the ums and whatever. And then, just telling the story as you would verbally. And then
Mm-hmm.
from that, like create a transcript and then clean it up because
Love that.
that I think that can really help unblock the white screen of
Totally.
death, right?
Love
Like,
it. Love it.
as it is verbal. And even when I work on talking points with organizations that we talk, we have to like be able to say, no, I don't know. Like you're gonna tell me because if it gets so long, like, no,
Yeah.
this is what people say to each other. That's why I hate elevator pitches. Cause like no
Yeah.
one talks for 30 seconds uninterrupted. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and you have to have somebody trapped in an elevator for them to
Right.
listen. No, this is a
Right.
conversation, right? So like,
Right. Right.
and so pretend like I'm having a conversation. And I have to tell you, at Thanksgiving, I was hosting Thanksgiving. I didn't host Thanksgiving last year because of COVID. So my family was coming over. It was a really big deal. Like we had about, I mean, I have like typically 30 people here, I have about half that, but still it's like a really big deal. And I just sent out a picture of like my dining room all set, for Thanksgiving. And I just said, like, I'm just wishing, like, I'm so grateful to have my family and to have you in my life. Like, happy Thanksgiving. It's just a very simple message. And I had so many people email me back and be like, happy Thanksgiving to you too. And it was so like, like they felt that, they felt that energy. And there is like, yes, I know I'm mailing it to 2,500 or, 2,500 people. And I want each person to feel that, because that was the
Yes.
intention that I set out.
Yes.
So even
Yes.
when you're receiving something, like, no, like receive it the way it was intended, which is there is somebody on the other end who wants you to have this,
Yeah,
and when you can feel that in the dialogue and the writing, it's so powerful. I mean, it's
totally.
such an amazing tool
I
when done
agree.
well, right?
When
I mean,
done
like
well,
anything
when
is
done
right.
well. Totally
Anything's
right. Right,
doing well,
right.
right?
Which you're hitting on something too that's really important that I love bringing forward is the energetic of your email, right? So this is if you are approaching email, this goes for everything in life and business, right? As one of our colleagues, Nani Diamond, says, the energy with which you create guides and determines the energy of the creation. And what that means is if you're writing your emails from this energy of like, gotta write another email, it's my weekly thing, and what am I going to say? And how do I get them to donate? How do I don't really care. I got it. And like, and you're just doing it just to check that thing off, mark the box and say you did this, then people can feel that on the other side. But if instead you're like, how can I really connect with Susie, right? Susie, my ideal donor. What does Susie need? How can I share a story with Susie that will inspire her about being connected to this organization? Oh, I can tell her this story. And, coming at it from just that little bit of a different angle and writing it in that way will make a 1,000 times difference in how people open and receive the messages that you're sending out.
Yeah. 100%. And sometimes I have to put myself like, a place of service. And also, from that, and also, and I know you're going to get to this, but people aren't ATMs. Okay. So like, I'm going to send this email out because I want to get all this money back. Like, that's kind of like not that can happen, but also that is not the intention, is to be of value.
Yeah.
And, and then you can have an ask. And I think that's one of the things that I want to address is like, and I don't know if that's in rhythm, but like how, that you're providing value in your authentic voice. And then, maybe one out of, every fifth time you're making some kind of ask, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and also knowing that you're just planting the seeds for the ask. Like like, it's not like, oh, I'm going to ask my list and they're going to respond. Some of them may, but then some of them may just be reminded, oh, right. They could use these donations, and they may act on that at that time or not, but it's all just about like that top of mind, like planting the seed. But it's often not, this is what I find. It's often not a direct, like, I'm going to send this out, I'm going to get a bunch of stuff back. Like, I'm going to send this out and I'm going to get some back, and then some comments, some connection, but knowing that you are still creating and maintaining that connection.
Exactly. Yeah. It's servicing on multiple levels, right? And it's making sure that, yes, there's nothing wrong with, making the ask. There's nothing wrong with wanting to generate, donations or things from your email. There's nothing wrong with any of that. It's just, you want to make sure that it's the next logical step in what you're asking them to do. So it's telling a story, it's planting a seed, it's letting them connect, then giving them the opportunity to donate, but wrapped around content that will be engaging to them, so they can connect those dots of why it's important for them to donate, why their money will be used well, why they're
right,
the impact that they're going to make with a $20 donation or $100 donation or whatever it is. So it's making it feel less transactional and a lot more relational.
Yes.
So that they're like, so they feel inspired to do it.
Right. I love that. Okay. I want to talk about lead magnets, but because that's really about how to get people on the list. But
yeah,
I want to keep going through the acronym.
Okay.
So are we ready for rhythm?
We're ready for rhythm, I think.
The rhythm is going to get you.
That's right. We're gonna get you. Let's see. Okay, rhythm. So this speaks to how often do you message that list? And what I find is oftentimes organizations will want to do it. They don't want to bug people. They're coming from a very good space on this. So they say, we're just going to send once a month. and we don't want to bug people. And the challenge with once a month is that in between those messages, two main things happen is the challenge. One, there's not enough, it's not consistent enough. So in between, people might forget that they're on your organization's list. They'll then start to unsubscribe because they're like, I don't remember signing up for this. I don't know why I'm on this list. I don't know what's going on. The second thing that can happen is if you're doing monthly, I see this a lot. Well, if it's monthly, we got to do a newsletter and we're going to pack all this information in.
Yep.
And it's a fire hose, man. And people open it up and they might be interested in 1 or 2 or 3 of the stories, but it's kind of like they open it and they go, oh yeah, I'm going to come back to this.
Right.
They never go back.
They never go back. And embedded into that are like 5 calls to action or volunteer here, give here. And they're like, wait, what am I, and that's when you give too many choices, people just don't know, like, well, which one is they want me to do? And then they wind up not doing anything. Oh, I'll go back. I'll figure it out. And they don't, right?
They don't. So what I would recommend is, look, if you're looking at your monthly newsletter and there's 4 sections in it or more, then break that up, do 1 content piece a week, and you've got 4 emails. Then all of a sudden you're doing weekly. It's much more focused. It's shorter. People will actually read it. And you can have 1 call to action per message, and people will be way more likely to take that action.
And okay, maybe like, 1 week it's events, 1 week it's volunteers, whatever it is.
Yes.
Whatever the structure is. And so I talked with somebody the other day, and she was mailing quarterly.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, like if you have a 20% open rate, which is pretty good, like there are people that have not opened an email from you in a year or maybe more. Yeah. And so what I encouraged her was to start monthly, like, because like going from quarterly to weekly felt like a jump. So let's do monthly when you get then twice a month. But the goal is really once a week.
Yes.
Like that is the goal. That would be the goal is once a week. And reframing this thing about like, oh, it's a burden, I don't want to bother people. You're giving them good content. You're giving them an opportunity to connect. Like you have to stand in the value of what you're delivering. So you'll want to deliver it like, because if that comes from that energetic of, oh, I don't want to bother you, then you're going to be like, then they're going to like, oh, this is a bother. I don't
It comes through. It comes through
100%.
What I want everyone to think about is, we all have emails in our inbox that are not from our boss. They're not our Amazon order confirmation. They're not fill in the blank of something that you kind of have to open or really need to open because you want to see what's in there. There's other emails that you voluntarily open and read regularly. In some cases, I have some that I read daily that I don't have to open, but they are so good and so content rich that I'm excited when I see them in there, and I open and read them almost every day.
Yeah. So if the content's good, people will want it, right? Yes. They're not bothered because you don't think the content's good, right? Like if you're giving them something of value, but a lot of it is, I feel like, is like a little too internal driven. We did this, we did that. And you want to share your accomplishments, but we're going to share our accomplishments from the supporter perspective, right? Like, what is it? What's like, again, always what's in it for them? What's in it for me? Like, why would they open this? What's going to make them open this? Yeah. And it's not because they're doing you a favor, right? It's because, oh, this is something really interesting. I'm excited to see what's happening, what they're doing, what's going on, and how I can help, and I know this, I think, see what happened in my mind is, we used to do quarterly back in the day, we did quarterly printed newsletters, right? And then, so that got translated to email, but without really respecting or understanding that people consume print differently than
Yes.
email. And I guess like probably 75% is probably on the phone. I don't know what, I haven't looked up that stat in a long time, but I bet it is. They're going to look at it on their phone. And your phone, when you look at the email, it looks really long, and you look at your desktop, it's super short. So you
Right.
keep that email short, like one story, one image, one call to action,
Yep.
boom. And they go, oh,
Wow.
and they go read it and they go, thanks, got it, next. Like,
Yeah.
and they can absorb that. But when it's all these stories, because you're trying to cram stuff in, let it breathe, so you're going to send out more, but it's not any more work. And that's really what I want to get across.
Great point.
You're creating the same content. You're just delivering it in drips instead of all at once.
Exactly.
And that in itself that rhythm is going to help you get into more inboxes and have more people see the message.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Love it. Perfect.
All right,
Miss Marianne.
Let's
talk
like
about, you've been a good client of mine.
I know, right? It looks like
years.
I've been working with you for a really long time. Okay, because I started with, my email list was 0 when I started with you. I did not have a list, and I think it's like 2,700 right now. So yeah.
No, gold star.
And I'm probably going to go through, and that's another thing is going through and, releasing people that aren't opening. And it's hard because you like those big numbers,
I know.
but and sometimes we got to release what is no longer serving us to make room for that which is. And so that's something, that we might want to address, is really just like, sometimes it's okay to let people go,
Yes. Well, the people, it's the people that you're letting go are people who haven't been opening, haven't been engaging, who they're not doing you any good. And in fact, they're actually hurting you, because again, if we look at the powers that be that are looking at your emails and what's happening with them, they're looking at, is this organization sending emails, and a lot of them are not getting opened. Because if you have a big list with a lot of unopens, then they'll assume that if so many people aren't opening because they don't want to be on the list, they'll assume you're spamming and move you again to that spam filter instead of into the inbox. So having the 16,000 list with only 500 opening hurts you getting to the 500 who are actually want to get to you. So scrub it. I did this one time, and I released 1,000 people from my list, and that hurt.
Oh, it hurt.
It hurt. I was like, and guess what? My business grew.
Right.
And my open rates grew, and it was fine, because these people didn't want what
they
I
aren't,
doing anyway.
They're just not your people. It's
all
right.
Let
it's
them
okay.
go find their peeps.
Yeah, like I call those fantasy relationships where, like, if I just mail them one more time, they'll get them this time. Like people in direct mail too, and people will mail. They haven't responded in 4 or 5 years, and they still haven't. Like, well, this one will turn them. They're just not your person. They probably got on the list via someone else, and they're just not that connected, and let them go. Because then you can really start to serve the people who do want to be a part of it. And it's just respecting who they are and what their needs are.
Yes. And you can start to read your metrics and get a lot better information from your metrics, which is the T in heart is technology. And it's looking at a few metrics, one of which is your open rate. 12 to 15% is average. And I like to keep my clients at 20% or higher. And so, if that number starts shrinking, then that's a good sign. Or if you just haven't done it in a long time, to scrub that list, get rid of anybody who hasn't opened. And you can be a wide window. If you're emailing regularly, then you could cut people who haven't opened within 9 months. Give them a broad 6 months. Like, I don't do 30 days. I think that's too tight of a window.
Right.
And then you'll just want to just send it. You can send a couple emails to those people and say, I like doing funny headlines on this one. Was it something I said, or, I miss you?
Yes. I like, there's always something. I'm always doing something like, that's going to grab people's attention about the content. Yes.
And then tell them you haven't opened for a while. Here's what we're doing. if you don't want to be on the list anymore, you don't need to do anything. If you do want to be on the list, click this link and we'll keep you on the list. So basically you're telling them we're taking you off unless you tell us you want to be on.
You want to be on.
And then
you gotta
actually do that.
You gotta take them all.
Anyway.
No, it's okay. I'm ready. Like I just feel like, why carry that? And I gotta eat my own cooking, right?
Yeah.
So you and I, we feel the pain and we know it's, right. And then, so I can be there and I can tell you to do it and you'll survive, but I got to do that from a place of alignment. I can't tell you something to do that I'm not willing to do myself.
Totally. And by the way, your backend system that you use, Simplero, happens to be the same one I use. But the great thing about them, and a couple other platforms do this as well, is that you can automate that process. So since we haven't had the automation part of it set up, then we'll need to do the scrub, but then you can set up so that afterwards, after you do that kind of big scrub, then it will always search, and whatever parameter you tell it, it will then send that little series of messages. So it'll be running in the background. So you don't then end up cutting 500 at one time. It's like, 2 here, 3 here, like whatever. And that is a little more palatable.
Right. Yeah. Right. And it's a continuous thing too. It's not like you gotta like get all your gumption up and like, it's constantly doing that. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
I need to do that. So what are some of the part of the technology too is, so what are some of the programs or the systems that you recommend?
So the first question is, what do you need? Right. And this is where people, I feel, get a little lost in organizations. It's like, it's like someone likes the hot new thing and they go get that without really looking and saying like, do we need all these bells and whistles?
Right. Is this really what we want? Yeah.
Yeah. So if you just need email, meaning you just need to, have that list, have some automated emails going when people first get on your list, which I recommend. And then sending those regular messages. I really like ActiveCampaign. I think it's a solid platform. It doesn't cost very much. I think they even have special rates for 501c3s. So, so it's good, solid, good deliverability, easy to use. If you need a little bit more, I do like Simplero. That's what you use in the back end. I use in the back end. That lets you have some membership sites. There's some courses, an option to put some courses in. You can run payments through. So it's just a little more robust with what you can do, in addition to managing the email list and sending out those regular messages and running that scrub in the background. So,
I do think people use a lot of Mailchimp, and you're not in love with Mailchimp.
I'm not in love with Mailchimp. I don't love the monkey. Here's why. It's, first of all, it is a great starter. And if you haven't done anything, then, you need to start somewhere, go start somewhere. The challenge is, because it's free, there are a lot of people who are using it who are a little less savvy in how people get on their, the list and just kind of how they regulate it. And what happens is, part of that deliverability equation is the platform that you're in. And so if you're in a platform where a lot of people aren't being savvy about how people get on the list, and thus they are accidentally spamming or kind of unintentionally spamming people, that'll affect your emails getting into the list because you're using the same platform. I hope that makes sense. Kind of like the one bad apple idea.
Yeah. So it's bringing everybody down.
Yes, that's right. So that their deliverability isn't quite as good. And then quite frankly, I just feel like if you even move into the paid levels with them, I feel like you get more bang for your buck with like an ActiveCampaign in terms of automations and some other things that you can do.
Yeah. Okay. So let's, like, one of the things that you mentioned was, the automated sequence when people join the list. So, and so if people like sign up for your email, and then they you get a 3 thing, like sequence, like, hey, welcome. And you're going to do that a couple times. This is probably leading into the lead magnet conversation, but let me just say this. So if somebody say I'm go to an event, and I feel like an event, like if I'm paying for an event, that's sort of reasonable expectation of email, right? Like I'm probably going to get an email. That's fine. I know I'm going on your list. I'm buying a ticket. So then after the event, you say, hey, you're on our list. Do I need to do that the nurture sequence after that event, or was that experience, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, is it different when they're cold, when they're just coming in, like say they go to your website or your lead magnet and they now like, and then they're on the list, or if you're like, have a big event and then you put people on your list, do you create that nurture sequence after that as well?
I think you can kind of roll in, if someone's signing up for an event, you can kind of roll what you would do in that in that welcome series into the event messages. I don't recommend doing like a separate welcome series, because I feel like they're connected by the event. You do want to have that message that says you're on our list. Here's what you're going to get. Here's what's in it for you, blah, blah, blah. And then you're fine with that. Very different, like you said, from someone coming just to your website and signing up to get on your list.
So the way that you get people off social media and onto your email list is a lead magnet. And this is like the most like criminally underutilized thing, because it's just so simple. It doesn't take a technology, everything. If you have ActiveCampaign and Canva and a website, I can do this. Okay. Like I can do this. All right.
Yes.
I hate all that stuff. I'm not techie at all. And I put together a lead magnet, like in like a couple of hours. And all it is just some kind of pop-up window that says, hey, get our guide. Like, hey, we serve homeless people. Here's our guide to what happens if somebody approaches you for money. Here's our guide to how to manage that. Here's our guide. The first day you bring your dog home, here's our guide. Or like, like whatever it is, like here's whatever it is that you have that can just entice people, instead of sign up for our newsletter, which is what I see all the time. A little box in the corner, sign up, like, well, that's sexy. I can't wait to do that. Sign up here for our newsletter. Like, no, give me something, like, sign up here to see, the latest, to see, how we're changing, the lives of kids in foster care.
Right.
Like, give me, or here's our little thing about, like I was just thinking about like foster adoptive care coalition. Like if I have a heart for kids in foster care, like I would want to say, like, here's like to see our latest, a success story, or what, what we're doing. Some of the strides that we've made in the system, like you can just download that and like, or, get access to a page where you can get some really cool content in exchange for that email. And then they're on the list. Right. And then after that, the nurture sequence starts.
Right.
Because then they'll say, hey, thanks for, or a great decision to download this. We can't wait to keep you informed about, the redwoods, or, or whatever. And then you like that nurture sequence and carries them through that. Right. And kind of builds that relationship.
Exactly. So perfect. Marianne, you're like so good. The lead magnet, think about that as just that exchange. Like you said it perfectly. It's exchange of content, right? For the email. So they get something for giving up their email, something way more compelling than another newsletter.
Sign up for our newsletter.
No one really wants that.
Okay.
And then that welcome series is just having them interact and understand the information a little bit more and start to understand the organization a little bit more. So, you could think about it as the first one's going to talk about the content. The second one will talk about maybe your volunteer base. The third one might highlight a donor. Like, again, taking that kind of engaging content idea that we talked about for your ongoing emails, you could, do a mini version of that in that welcome series, but just so they start to relate to you.
During the forum, one of the things, like we were brainstorming with people, like what their lead magnets would be. And someone's like, I'm a domestic violence agency. I'm like, download our guide for what to do if you think your friend is in an abusive relationship.
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh. Right. So I would give you my email exchange for this guide. And then I would get the 3 things, right? Thank you. If you have a friend, like here's what to do,
look out for.
Right.
Here's what not
nurture
to do.
Sequence. And then at the end, the last message though is, the last nurture sequence messages, the third is like, and now you're on our list, right? Like,
exactly.
Let us know if we can support you in any way, and we're going to add you to our list. And so and then after that third one, then they go on the list. So it's like they download 1, 2, 3, and that's all automated.
All automated. Yes.
So,
yes. All automated.
Once you set that up, it's done. Right. And it just works for you in your sleep. when you're on vacation, anytime you want, it's going to just work for you.
Exactly.
And that's why this stuff is like, because you only have to set it up once. And then every time somebody comes to your website, that pop-up window shows up, hey, get this, and you're capturing that email. Imagine all. And so when we were talking with Ilya about the Google ads, it'll be like, okay, hey, sign this petition. You go to sign the petition, blah, 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 blah. And then now they're like, thanks for signing the petition, like, and then after the third, then we move them to the email list.
Yeah.
And he said, like, organizations are getting 200 to 400 people a month coming onto their email list.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
So, and they may not, they may not stay, but you're getting some traction on there.
Yeah.
And
totally.
And so it's a great way. And also one of the things that we talked about that I think is important is like giving is like down the ladder of behavior. So, you're going to, like I said, you can't marry them on the first date, right? So so you're going to go down the list, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing we like, maybe it's hit reply and tell me something, or, or click this link. Like those are your calls to action. Not every call to action is give us money, give us money, give us money. Cause that is what, LeeAnn, what are we doing when we only ask for money?
You're booty calling your list.
100%.
You don't want to booty call your list. You haven't sent me an email. You haven't sent me any love. But
I only text you when I want something.
Right? Nobody wants that. Come on.
I don't think anybody had the intention of booty calling, and it just but that's how it's being perceived.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, thinking about that other person. What shoes are they in? What are they feeling?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, is that your timer? And then thinking about, now I forgot what I was going to say, but I was going to say, anyway, hold on. Let me just gather my thought here. This is live. Okay. This is what happened. But let me see if I can grab it. Well, I can't, that's all right. But I think I was going to say something about, this is this is what I was going to say. So sometimes I feel like people are going to try to get new people into the organization without really maximizing their communication with the folks they already have. So if you are emailing monthly, they'll go to weekly, get that established, get that really pull, like grow the garden that you already have instead of trying like pulling people in. Cause like that social media is kind of sexy and shiny. And I get that.
Yeah.
But it's like, but we're not really taking care of the people who already have indicated that they want to have a relationship. Yes. So nurturing them, really creating like the delivery, consistent delivery to them, then you can add people to it.
Yes. Yes. I was looking at this the other day, and I know I'm a different situation, and this applies. I was looking the other day I ran a Black Friday, Cyber Monday special. It's really like the only time that I ever make a direct buy offer to my list, once a year. And I was looking at the list of people who bought the other day, and it was like, oh my gosh, this person saw me speak and they've been connected. This person I had a strategy session with and they weren't ready yet. This person did and it was like all these people who had somehow connected with me in some way. And they were on my list for some cases a couple months, in some cases a year, but they were getting nurtured by me. And then all of a sudden they presented this opportunity and they took it. So it's like, but if I would be making that offer all the time, or if I wouldn't have cultured or developed a relationship with them first, then it would have felt weird, or not as many would have bought it. I can guarantee you that.
Right. Yes. I love it. I remember my friend Jim, and this was he did fundraising for a school for a very long time. And the alumni would say, who would throw all these parties for the alumni. And they would say, oh, how can I repay? He's like, just remember me at annual giving. Just remember us at annual giving. And annual giving, boom, because he's been priming people for a year. So it's the same thing. When they make that ask, they're like, they're ready. I mean, I'm sure if somebody gave him a check, he wouldn't say no, but I'm just saying, how can I just remember at annual, you know what, just remember us at annual giving. And it was like, boom. And it's the same philosophy, right? He nurtured for a year. And then he made the ask, and they were so ready. They were so grateful for these experiences that he had given them. all throughout the year, which is like,
and we're grateful, I'm sure, that he didn't ask like a
yeah. Oh,
time
I
every
gave you
month,
this nice party.
So
Now where's
yeah,
the money? Right. Like,
right.
it's like, here's this, no, they're gonna, oh, well, how can I really remember us annual fund? And he was very, very successful for many, many years.
Yeah.
You know, with this philosophy, which is really the same thing that you're saying, like, you know, you don't, and I have to be honest, like I do the influence course, and every once in a while I promote it. And those are the emails that are always the hardest for me to write.
Yeah.
You know, and they like, so I really, but I want people to know about the course. And then also it's like, you know, so I'm working on that.
Well,
So like,
here's your tip, Marianne, for when you're writing that, is to write from the perspective of like, when I write emails like that, I take some of the people who have been through the service that I'm talking about, been through your course, and the transformation that they've had. And if you can get like a testimonial from them, and they can talk about, like, when I started the course, you know, I could never approach my board about anything, and now I have regular conversations with my board. You know, like, right from that perspective of showing what the impact and influence that your course has on the people who are attending. And then at the bottom, it's like, and if you want to, you know, have a conversation about it, here you go.
Right.
So it doesn't feel salesy. You're not pitching, but you're showing.
Which everybody knows we don't do that. So we don't convince, we don't pitch, we don't sell.
Yeah.
That's not what we do. So yeah, I'm going to work on that. But I would say, you know, I just love sharing what I know and sharing amazing people. And that's enough. And that's enough for you guys too. Anybody who's listening. All right, LeeAnn, this has been amazing. I know we could talk about this. We talk forever. Okay. I've asked you this question before, but just, you can answer it real quick. So if we were at karaoke, when the next time we are at karaoke together, what's going to be your go-to song?
Well, I just got to go with what popped into my head first, because it's been my recent favorite karaoke, and that's Ace of Base, I Saw the Sign.
Oh, that's a good one. I saw the sign. Yeah.
And it opened my eyes.
That's a good one.
You. Okay, sorry.
I'll do your little backup from the audience.
I saw the sign.
I think one of my friends is saying that before, but that's excellent. I love it. I'm going to hold you to that.
I'm in. Yes.
All right.
Definitely.
All right. And this has been another episode of The Influential and Nonprofit. Thank you so much to LeeAnn for sharing her time and expertise today. All her contact info will be in the show notes. You can go to her website and check out more if you want to learn more about what she does. And if you want to learn how to be more influential, you can go to the influentialnonprofit.com and download my lead magnet. So now you know the secret, my Up-Level Your Influence Starter Kit. In exchange for email, you get tons of goodies about how to be more effective in your communication and leadership. And that's it for me. And I'll see you next time on The Influential Nonprofit.